Hey, Trailblazers, this is Jason, your host of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. Before we jump into our latest episode, I've got some incredible news for you. Are you gearing up for your next big hike or backpacking trip? Well, we at Trailblazing Texas podcast have partnered up with Trekker Joe's, the ultimate Texas outfitter, to bring you something I feel absolutely special. Listeners, you of the Trailblazing Texas podcast can now get a one-time 15% off their gear purchases at Trekker Joe's. That's right. Whether you're a first-time customer at Trekker Joe's or a repeat customer like me, you can save big and hit the trails well prepared. So upon checkout, use code TTP15 to claim your 15% discount and in the process support an amazing local Texas business. So happy trails, and don't forget to tell your hiking buddies. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I'm your host, Jason. I am still employed. Today, we have coming to us all the way from Lake Brownwood State Park, we have Site Superintendent Nikki. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, most important questions. Well, I think it's probably the second most important question of the podcast. How is the temps and how is the mosquito pressure currently at the park?
It's still hot. I'm sad to report. The evenings are nice, but I think Monday is supposed to be 96 degrees. I am totally over this weather. Mosquitoes actually haven't been bad. It's been pretty dry for us. So my husband would say differently because he's the mosquito attractant, but for regular people, I think you're okay.
What about horseflies?
I don't think I've ever seen a horsefly here.
Oh,
man. Good. They're good.
So, as we kind of talked before the podcast, this is the first recording in the new studio. And with the new location, I'm about 25 minutes from the longest trail in Texas, Trailhead 1 of the Lone Star Hiking Trail.
Very cool.
And I always blame the heat that I don't hike in the summer, but it's really the dang horseflies. I mean, I can mitigate the heat with starting earlier, later, those sort of things, but them dang horseflies, they keep me off trail for sure.
I was visiting Caddo Lake last week and they were there and I was horrified because I don't have to deal with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot you existed.
Yep. All right. A little surprise. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the podcast, but I like to drop this on the guests. We have a lightning round. It's just these questions. First off, the listeners love it and the guests maybe not so much. But these are questions that you have not seen. I love it because it kind of breaks the ice a little bit, connects me with the guests, but also it gives a little insight to the listeners, just you personally and some of your thoughts. But just short answers, first words that pop into your mind. And don't worry if it's not lightning-y. I don't even know if that's a word, but if it's not, it should be.
It is now.
Through the magic of edit, we will make this thing like we are flying, like we know what we're doing.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I love the beat of editing. I am ready to go. Let's see.
All right. Favorite trail in the park?
Ooh, Nepalus Ridge Trail.
One word you would use to describe Lake Brownwood State Park to our listeners?
Peaceful.
Love it. What is your favorite activity to do at the park?
Oh, dang, that's a hard question. Night sky stuff, honestly, like photography and looking through our telescope.
Oh, nice. Funniest thing you've ever heard a visitor say?
Ooh, I've had multiple visitors ask me when we let the animals out and when we put them back up at night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite time of day in the park, sunrise or sunset?
Oh, sunset.
What's tougher to manage, the heat or the crowds?
The heat. I mean, I can handle the crowds, but if I got a headache or I'm thirsty, I'm done.
Yeah, I hear you. What is your go-to trail snack?
I really love the, like, Cars, trail mix. It's in the, like, purple bag. Man, I love that stuff. I could eat it all the time.
Coolest animal you've spotted in the park?
Um, Bobcat. We've seen a few. They're so
What?
elusive. Yeah, but yeah, we've just sitting at our headquarters, it just crossed the road and you're like, "Hello." Yeah, super awesome.
Wow. Most important thing first timers coming to the park must know before arriving.
Ooh. Dang, that's a tough one. Just to be prepared. It's a lake park, but it gets really hot, and I think people forget that. Like in the summer, they forget
Yeah.
that it's hot outside, even though there's water. So be prepared.
I would throw in make a reservation.
Yes. Well, this is true as well. Yes.
I've learned that, I think this is the 11th or 12th state park that's come on the podcast, and that is so crucial is that reservation and just saving time for
Oh
you
yeah,
guys,
absolutely.
reservation.
S-
All right, yes or no? Have you ever answered a question that a visitor asked and it paused and made you think, did they really just ask that?
Yes, all the time.
All right. All right. What part of the park do you hope never changes?
um, any of our CCC areas of the park. I mean, things change, but I hope that they stay as they are.
All right. This question to me is very interested coming from the superintendent perspective. What would you tell a brand new park ranger starting there for their very first day?
Probably some advice I would give is that whatever you've prepared for or you expect your day to be like, it's not going to be that way, but that's okay. Just hold on and you're going to have a good time.
All right, cool. What trail snack do you pretend to secretly, or would you pretend to like but secretly hate?
Ooh. Um, Probably like any kind of jerky products. I'm just not a
Oh,
jerky person.
that's mine. It's beef jerky. I love beef jerky. I don't want to have it on trail. And of
Yeah.
course, that's what everybody packs. So
Yep.
all the people you want some jerky, you want some jerky, and I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried, but I can't.
All right. Would you rather clean the park restrooms after a busy holiday weekend or lead a group of 20 unsupervised fifth graders on a hike?
Oh, definitely the restroom. The
All right.
restroom's not sassy.
All right. Yes, I hear that. Would you rather talk to someone at a trying to pet wild animals or explain to them for the 20th time that feeding animals is a bad idea?
Ooh, probably someone trying to feed the animals is a little more critical. Both are tough.
Well, you need to come to my neighborhood and educate these people because everybody's feeding these deer and they're eating all my plants.
Oh, yeah, go away.
Yes. All right, last question. This is the most important question of the podcast and really gives us the direction or the duration of the podcast. Are you ready?
Okay, yes.
All right. What is your favorite of all time Texas hiking podcast that you've been a guest on?
I mean, it's gotta be yours, Trailblazing Texas.
Yes. I don't know what it is, but it's like I'm batting 1,000 with that answer. Everybody, state parks, not state parks, national parks, it's always Texas hiking podcast.
It's because 'cause you're killing it.
I would like to think so. This has been a fun hobby. All right, so as we kind of start to dive into the episode, I think it's important, as well as comments I get from the guests, is to really get an understanding and also a little bit of information on you and kind of, how you became into the position and working with the Texas Parks and Wildlife and kind of that journey. So, how long have you worked for the Texas Parks and Wildlife?
So it'll be 11 years in
Oh,
November, like
wow.
middle of November. Yeah, I am astounded myself.
And so, how long have you been at Lake Brownwood?
I've been at Lake Brownwood for a little over 7.5 years.
Okay. And so what brought you there?
So I actually came to Brownwood as the assistant superintendent back in 2018. And then I
Mhm.
was very fortunate to get to promote to the superintendent role in 2021. So I had my supervisor at the time was like, look, I'm going to be retiring in a few years, but if you want this position, you want to take over after me, I'll do everything I can to get you trained and get you the tools that you need to be successful. And that's what he did. So yeah, I was able to stay here and really just invest time into this park.
Wow. Nice. This is my favorite question, whether it's interpretive ranger, superintendent, and it's funny, it's always the same answer no matter what. But how would you describe your typical day as a park superintendent?
I can guess that pretty much everyone has said there is no typical day or
Yes.
something along those
Yes.
lines. Um, So what I strive to do every day. So I always start my day off with my maintenance team so we can talk about, what projects we have going on, what needs to get accomplished, cabins that need to be cleaned that are leaving that day. Then I go meet with my office team and make sure that they're doing well. And then from there, it's just kind of responding to the day, basically, whether that's, emails, requests coming in. Um, you kind of make a plan for your day. You have projects that you're working on, and then park stuff happens, and so then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm going to go do this now. An emergency popped up, or whatever, and so but that's what I think. Probably a lot of rangers would also say that's what they like about their jobs because it's not predictable. It's not the same thing every day. You wake up knowing that you don't know what's going to happen today.
Yeah. And if you look at your time at the park, or maybe even just your whole time at Texas Parks and Wildlife, do you have a favorite story or a memory that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. So, gosh, there's been so many great memories over 11 years, but one that's really stuck out to me. I had a summer intern a few years ago, and she lived down in McAllen, and so she lived, with a lot of night sky pollution. So we had done a night hike. She had helped me do a night hike for some visitors. And when we got back to the trailhead parking lot, we were letting everybody go home. And she and I were just kind of looking at the night sky. And she looks at me and she says, I have never seen so many stars in my whole life. And I was so taken aback because I was fortunate to grow up in a more rural area. I could see the Milky Way where I grew up. And it was so powerful to me to remember, like, this is why we do this. Even
Yeah.
though she was an employee, like, this is still why we do this because we get to provide experiences to people that they've never had before. And so we just like stood in the parking lot and I pointed out constellations to her and we just looked at stuff in the night sky, and it just kind of gives me chills even thinking about that because yeah, it was so powerful to remember that everyone's experience is different, but this is why we do what we do.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you say that. And everybody that I've talked to with Texas Parks and Wildlife, the passion that they have for stewardship, for education, and their stories of that little child that caught their first fish, that didn't know how to fish. Stuff that like you said, we probably sometimes take for granted, but just to see that innocence and then the experience, it's got to be pretty incredible. I had, Claire and Hannah on from Enchanted Rock, and Hannah does a night sky program, and she was talking that she was going to have to cancel it because of weather, and it was still kind of iffy. And one of the guests called her and said, what's the status? And I don't know if the situation, but the guest said, I want to see the Milky Way before I die. And you can tell when Hannah's telling this story how that impacted her. And I think hopefully that the listeners kind of understand that for Texas Parks and Wildlife, the superintendents, the rangers, it's way more than just a job.
Yeah.
I've never met any of you that I was like, yeah, they're not, they're just like, they're there for the check or something. Like it's way it's so much more deeper than that, and
Yeah, we kind of joke that we get paid in sunrises and sunsets, and obviously we get a paycheck. But yeah, there's also all of those other um, experiences that we kind of get paid back in just the experiences that is what makes the job so rewarding. Because I mean, anybody could just work anywhere. I could get a paycheck somewhere else, but I mean, my office is incredible because it's the whole park, and I can't do that most places.
and I often, like, just to myself, ask myself as I'm preparing for these episodes, especially with Texas Parks and Wildlife State Parks, is how many jobs that people have that go to they just go to work, and there's nothing meaningful that comes out of that experience, you know? So, yeah, I definitely feel like you all are very lucky, and, it's so funny that you all have this passion, and it's it's like you wake up and they just stick the passion shot in you and everybody's ready to rock.
We have our off days. I mean, you can't always be
Yeah.
on, but it sure helps to know that you could go to your work and absolutely change someone's life by something simple.
And even if you just think of it in a that might be the only positive experience that guest has that whole day, that whole week, that whole month, even in their whole life. And you all have that ability to be that person is it's spectacular
Yeah, we feel pretty lucky.
for sure. All right, what is one part of your job that you think would surprise most people?
um, it's kind of lame, but I spend a lot of time at a computer. A lot of my job is very administrative, a lot of emails. Of course, we're a big spread out agency, so emails kind of critical for communication. And I mean, it's a modern society that we're living in. It's just the nature of it. So I have to be intentional sometimes about like, I'm going to go out on a trail and pick up trash today because I need time away from my screen. Um, Obviously, not all of our roles are that way, but mine in particular is just very computer heavy. And every people will be like, "Oh, you must be outside all the time." And I'm like, "Not really. I'm kind of pale this year. I didn't get a lot of sun. Should get out more."
Yeah. Yeah, nice. So, to a first-time visitor, how would you describe the park?
So Brownwood is a lake park. We're on a lake. So by nature of that, we are a lake park. But to me, it's different because we're part of the cross timber. So we have a ton of oak mott's, and so there's all these trees, and so it kind of gives you this more private, peaceful feel, like I mentioned earlier. And so it's about getting in the water, but also um, it's in my mind, it's not like high paced party kind of vibes, like some other lake places could be. I'm sure you could think of some lakes in Texas where, you go there to party kind of thing. And I'm not saying people don't have a good time here, but to me it's a slower pace. But it also has a ton of history because of our Civilian Conservation Corps history, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. So it's just kind of a unique blend of all of these factors, and that's what I really love about it.
So, can you share a little bit about the history of, Lake Brownwood State Park?
Yeah, so before the lake existed, we just had the creeks that kind of came through this area, and we know that Native American peoples were using this area for quite a long time as a stopover point, basically. So nomadic tribes would stop here. It's a great place to get game. They would get water, gather roots, cook them, spend some time, and then move on. And so ironically, camping here has been part of our history for quite a long time. um, and then moving on into the 1850s, when settlers started arriving in Brown County, it became more of like a ranching, farming community. I think particularly sheep in this area. And so it was homesteaded. The thing about the Pecan Bayou, which is one of the bodies of water that feeds Lake Brownwood, is it had this history of just devastating floods. So the city of Brownwood is located south of us here at the lake. and they're on the Pecan Bayou. And so they would get these floods that would just hit downtown Brownwood and absolutely destroy things. And so there was this need to build a dam because they wanted the city there, but they knew that they needed to control the flooding. And that's where the damming of where the Pecan Bayou and the Jim Ned Creek happened, which is where we get Lake Brownwood. So that dam was finished in 1933. Well, right after that, of course, we're getting into the Great Depression at this point. Brown County really wanted to have a park. And so the Brown County Water Improvement District, who is the controlling authority of the lake and owned land, reached out to the Texas State Parks Board and said, "Hey, we want a park here. We have 538 acres and we will sell it to you for $1."
Wow.
Which is such a steal, even in those times. And so
Really?
that's where the property for Lake Brownwood State Park came from. And then very quickly after that, in 1934, the Civilian Conservation Corps is brought in, and they start developing and building our road systems. They built 16 cabins. They built our group recreation hall. They built lodges, which some of them did not start out as lodges. They started as other buildings, but we use them differently now. They built picnic areas, culverts. I mean, they did some extensive development in the park through the 30s into the early 1940s, which brings us into World War II. And if you're familiar with Brownwood, on the south side of Brownwood is Camp Bowie. And so Camp Bowie was pretty critical in the war. It was training up soldiers to go overseas. A lot of CCC boys actually joined up with the military at that time. And so the park kind of changed a little. It started serving Camp Bowie as an Army recreation area. So basically, it provided a space for anyone training at Camp Bowie to kind of have a little getaway, a retreat, get to the lake. I think they did a little bit of water training here as well. We have a few photos that show like the duck boats and things like that. And I think they were doing some diving practice and all. And so it served that role through World War II, and then kind of reopened back up to just normal, the public can come here. But the park was actually, its name was changed for a short period. From 1946 to 1956, we were actually known as the 36th Division State Park in honor of the 36th Division who trained at Camp Bowie. And so we have a pretty
Oh,
strong
wow.
military tie. There's actually a stone granite monument at our group recreation hall that talks about the 36th Division. So yeah, it's a very interesting history. Of course, we've changed over the years, but it's pretty interesting when you get into reading about all the things that we've done as a park.
So, what do you think makes the park unique amongst other parks in your region?
So we're kind of in an interesting location because we're not quite hill country. We're not quite the rolling plains, and we're not quite cross timbers. We're a little bit of all of those because we're kind of this meeting point of all of those ecotypes. And so we have a ton of diversity in plants and animals that reflect all of those, and the topography as well. So we look a little differently than some of our other parks that are smack dab in the middle of an ecoregion. Um, and we have a ton of CCC development. So some CCC parks have maybe a few structures. Some have more. I've been told, and I do not quote me on this per se, but I have been told that our park has the most CCC built structures of the Texas State Park system. And some of that is like culverts and picnic tables, but they did a pretty extensive development. And so I think that sets us apart from other parks around us as well.
So, speaking of these types of things, are there any historical landmarkers or features that visitors should look for when they visit?
Yeah, so history all around you, really. I mentioned the granite marker for the 36th Division. The group recreation hall is probably the most iconic building that we have in our park, which was one of the first buildings built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. Um, so there's tons to see. I mean, it's a reason that a lot of people like to come visit our park. We have history enthusiasts that like to come visit just to see all of the structures that were built here.
In your time at the park, how have you seen the park evolve or change over the years?
So one of the biggest changes in my time here is that our park has grown physically in size. We were fortunate to have a piece of property for sale that shared a boundary with us, and it was the right timing because the agency has money set aside to help parks grow. And so we were able to acquire 869 acres, which over doubled the size of our park.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. And uh, I was kind of flabbergasted because starting my career, almost 11 years ago, it was just a little bit different. We didn't have the same funding and support, which we are blessed with now. And so the thought of adding like basically another park sized parcel to our park was incredible. So that's been a really big change that I've seen since I've been here.
So if you look at, I would guess most of the activities at the park are related to the lake. How do you think the lake itself shapes the experience for visitors?
It's a really big draw for sure. I feel like most people plan their trip to our park around the lake in some capacity. We have a ton of boaters, kayakers. There's so many great little nooks along the lake shore. If you're a kayaker, it's great to experience the park by the water. Swimming, we have tons of anglers. We have a fishing pier and a crappie dock, so a lot of people plan to come here and go fishing. And even for like our nature watchers, bird watchers, the lake is such a draw for like migratory birds. So here in a few months, around December, we'll have pelicans and gulls and just random birds hanging out with us for the winter. Yeah.
Before I started having state parks on, I had no idea that birding was so massive. It's like almost all the state parks that I've had on, that's a big draw for them. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to check this out. So, we have property now. I have like an acre backyard. I bought a bird feeder that has the camera.
Right.
I've been here for a week and a half and hadn't had one bird land on that sucker.
They haven't found it yet. Just give it time.
I turn on the mic to that thing, like, here, birdie, 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 and nothing,
Right.
nothing. So,
Yeah, it's one of those I don't want to be date myself as a millennial, but it's just one of those like especially millennials have just like I just woke up and now I'm a birder. I don't know, it's just a thing that we do. I'm not going to say I'm great at it, but I have Merlin and I like to try to figure out what the birds are.
yeah,
So it's just like a nice, as you go about your day, like, "Ooh, what was that? Bird ADD."
yeah. I do a lot of videos out on the Lone Star hiking trail. You'll get away from the roads and stuff, and you just hear birds, and I'll record. But yeah, like seeing them, I'm not very good at because my eyesight's not very good. But yeah, I mean, I spent I don't know how much on this bird feeder and just sits there. I even got like the good bird seed, and
Right.
I'm working on a neon sign that has an arrow that says free food.
That's what you're missing. You just need the free food
Yes,
sign. It'll
yes.
change everything.
This is, I think, is a really interesting question that's come up with the other state parks, especially that have a history like you guys have. And how do you balance, and especially in your position, right? Like, how do you balance preserving its history with offering kind of the modern amenities for guests?
That is such a good question. It's something that we're going through right now, really, because our cabins are actually closed at the moment for renovations. And so when we started this project, it was really important to everyone that we make sure that the buildings are functional, right? They're going to be functional for our visitors. We're trying to make some accessibility improvements, and so just by nature of those things, like the look is going to change. The look has changed of those cabins,
No,
frankly, before we ever got here. But what was really important to us is to preserve the feel and look as much as possible. So when they're making choices about what we're putting in back in those buildings, so particularly this project is focused on bathrooms and kitchens. So the idea is like you don't want to put something in there that looks like modern because it really takes you out of the feel that we're going for. So the look is still going to try to honor those roots even though they're new materials. We're going to try to choose things that honor the history of that building that still make you feel like you're stepping into the 1930s without feeling like you're having a 1930s shower or a 1930s mattress.
I hear you.
Yeah, you're gonna have electrical outlets to charge your phone. There's just by nature of life, we have to evolve, but that doesn't mean that we can't still preserve the look and feel of those buildings. So it is challenging.
One thing that I really kind of kicked off with Aaron at Purtis Creek, the passion, and then it really started me to direct some questions about accessibility and making parks more accessible for
Mhm.
everybody, and the passion. And like you see, and this is another thing that it's just in y'all's DNA, the passion
Mhm.
that you all have to make the parks as as accessible to everyone as possible, and also with the understanding that there are some limitations
Mhm.
that you have due to the infrastructure, the older infrastructure, and that balance. We definitely want to preserve the history, but also, um, make them accessible for everybody. And
Yeah. Yeah, and to that point, one of the cabins in this project um, is getting its interior is going to be brought up to fully ADA standards. And so, I mean, the CCC was not thinking about accessibility when they built these buildings. That just wasn't part of the conversation. But we can still make it that way and still make it, it's still going to have the same kind of tile. It's just a roll-in
yeah,
shower. So as much as we can, we're trying to find those places. Some of those buildings, the doorways are just they're not even like a standard it's
yeah,
small. And so there's just some limitations about this will probably never change. But we have a few opportunities to do that and we're taking them. So as much as possible, we're here to serve Texans and by extension, I mean the world, really, anyone who wants to
yeah,
come
yeah.
visit. And as much as we can make that accessible to them and let them enjoy the history the same way other people are, I mean, that is important to us.
My heaven on earth is Guadalupe Mountain National Park. I've been there 20 something times. I have their tattoo, the west facing ridge
Oh,
line.
that's awesome.
I've become friends with the ranger there, Leah, and golly, for probably 5 or 6 years. And when I come to state parks, and this links back to accessibility, so just go with me on this one. But when I used to go to national parks, state parks, I never paid attention to anything but my objectives. So it's bagging the 10 highest peaks in Texas, or a 3-day backpacking, whatever. So I was there and was talking to Leah, and I always usually tell her, like, okay, and she usually checks us in. So I'm like, okay, I want to do this, and she's usually like, maybe not at your age, but so we have a good time with it. And she goes, look, I have a program that's starting in 10 minutes if you guys want to stick around. And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And I never even dawned on me that all these wonderful programs that you all put so much effort into that we should take part in. So I'm like, oh, absolutely. So me, Henning, who's usually with me on all the adventures, and I believe Sam, he's a really good friend from New Mexico. He always drives in as well. We're sitting there and she starts talking about there were 5 people in wheelchairs and they made it to the top of Guadalupe Peak. It took them 5 days. And so while she's giving this story, and to the listeners and even to yourself, you can go to YouTube, and there's it's like an 80s documentary, like documenting this story, and it's called Assault on the Mountain. So I think at the end of the day, 3 of them made it, and the ranger at the Guadalupe Mountains ended up being the director of the National Park Service at some point. I think he's retired now. And so she's giving this presentation. I'm crying. She's crying. Henning's, he's a Marine. He's tearing up. Sam's tearing up. But it was just such an amazing experience to be part of this program that she's put together. And I love that park. There's not a time that I leave that park that I don't cry. It means that much to me. Like, is this the last time that I'll ever be here?
Oh.
And so she's given this program. We're all in tears. And from that moment on, I was like, I'll never look at all the times that I've been to parks and I've never paid attention to what's going on due to selfish reasons, that I'm missing out on so much stuff. And so at that moment, I said every state park that I go to or national park, I'm checking out what's happening, what's going on,
Mhm.
because I want to be part of these programs. But to get back to the accessibility, after, so I think they even brought in like military helicopters to pick the guys up
Oh,
off
wow.
the peak. Yeah, got them back down, and the one of the gentlemen that was in the wheelchair that made it to the top told the ranger, he goes, sit in this wheelchair, and then you go explore a little bit of the park and you see what I see. And like, kind of the thing was like that ranger never, and I think maybe even at that time it was never thought of, but that really kicked off the accessibility program for the quads, is him getting in that wheelchair and just kind of experiencing the
Mhm.
park. And so it's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
I've said it, I've talked about it a few times on the podcast, but definitely, you got to check it out. But it's really awesome that, Texas Parks and Wildlife, that this is a priority. And you see that with,
Mhm.
every interview, that this is a priority for the organization to be more accessible for everybody. So,
Yeah. And I think what really, it's just, for better or worse, it's just never been part of my realm. And as we've started talking about it more, one of the most powerful things to me that really made it click in my head was being disabled can happen to you at any time of your life, regardless of who you are. That's
yeah,
something about you that can change. And so I try, it's like, well, I try to think about myself, or like, what if something happened to me? Would I be able to use this space? Would I be able to
yeah,
navigate in this space? Or, all disabilities look very different. But that was just so powerful, because it's like that affects so many people. And it could be me one day, it could be my family, it could be anyone. And so, trying to do the best we can, um, to make it as accessible as possible. Yeah, it's some pretty powerful stuff.
absolutely. So I think this is very important to you because we've talked a little bit about this, and I know we've talked just in the podcast here that we've touched on some of the things. But can you share some of these major projects that you're currently involved with at the park?
Yeah, so I'd kind of touched on this big project that we have for the cabins. So the primary reason that this is happening is because some of the water and wastewater lines on those buildings are essentially original CCC, and a hodgepodge of repairs over 90 years. And so that's kind of what kicked it off. But then we're like, well, if we're already messing with the plumbing, why don't we renovate the restrooms and standardize all the fixtures and things that we have to make it easier on maintenance, and just, make it nicer, redo the cabinetry in the kitchen so it's nicer. So it's a really big project that's going. We're closed on those buildings right now, and they will probably be closed until spring of 2027. So it's pretty extensive. It's a bummer that they're closed to people right now, because so many people love staying in our cabins. But um, to me, it's nice that they just get a rest. Like I can almost hear the buildings just sighing, like, I can just rest
Yeah,
now. And they're going to come back great. So I'm super excited. And then I had mentioned the property acquisition back in 2023. And so that is a huge opportunity for this park. A lot of CCC parks have they kind of have this development idea that you keep everything really kind of squished together. And to be fair, in 538 acres, there's not a ton of breathing room. And so this acquisition has really opened the door for us to sort of spread things out, um, bring in some new amenities. So some of the things that we're looking at, we only have 5 miles of trail at this park. And so this adds opportunities for trail expansion, hopefully a pull through camping loop, because modern campers have different expectations of camping. And so having a pull through camping loop is going to be great for our RV campers. I'm looking at some backpacking sites because we don't have anything primitive. I mean, it's not going to be a crazy long hike, but for people, just looking for a short experience or trying to get built up to it, it's a good starting point. We're never going to be like, you know thousands of acres, but we can do that with what we have.
The second night I was here, I was backpacking in my backyard, so
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't care. I don't care the distance.
there you
There's
go.
trees and
I'm happy.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The new property that we got also has a mile and a half of accessible shoreline. So when I say that, have you been to Lake Brownwood, by the way? Have you been to our park? Okay. So the interesting thing about our park is it does have easy shoreline access, but then a lot of it is kind of like a rocky ridge. So like to get to the water, you'd have to like climb down rocks to get to the water. So this new property that we have is on the opposite side. We're on a peninsula and it's on the opposite side of this peninsula, and it's all very gentle, easy, accessible shoreline. So it kind of opens the door for more day use opportunities, fishing opportunities, swimming opportunities, kind of relieving some of that pressure and hopefully improving the visitor experience because on a busy summer day, our day use swim area, the parking lot is packed and everyone's trying to find a nice picnic table under the shade trees, but they're all taken. And so we're hoping that this kind of opens the door to some breathing room to provide people that more quiet experience, even when it's busier. And so we're in the early planning stages of that. I mean, I don't know. There's no timeline particularly on it right now. I hope to see some movement before I leave this park or retire. But it's cool to be on the ground floor of thinking through what does this park do well and what could we do better and what do people want to see.
So how does that even so you have the land, it's sitting there. What is the process where like trails would start to be added or campsites or primitive
Mhm.
campsites? Like how does that process work? Is it just prioritized by Texas Parks and Wildlife that, the resources will go to this park or this park for these types of expansions?
So we're all kind of learning because this is sort of new territory for all of us. I don't know if when you talk to the Enchanted Rock folks, they got to talk about that. They're kind of in the same boat. So we're kind of learning, but basically, we have a whole park planning team, and thank God for them. They're so smart and talented and know how to make things work. I'm just like, I know what I want, but I don't know where they need to go. Just throw them out there. Um, and so they're kind of helping us figure out, okay, we know we want these elements. Where are the best places for them? And I think it'll probably start with trails. I think it'll be a phased development, um, because trails are pretty easy to, much faster than trying to build a building and set
Yeah.
up utilities. And so that's kind of what we're looking at first is building trails, but specifically trails that connect to our existing trail system. And so that's kind of what we're hoping to have happen first. And then from there, all the other elements whenever funding is set aside for those. But as far as like when or how, I don't know. I'm learning. I'm just as excited to hear as I'm sure everybody else is.
As you mentioned, so it was 5 miles of trails that are currently in the park.
That's right.
What are some of the most popular hiking trails?
I, I would say probably the Texas Oak Trail is probably the most popular. Kind of for two reasons. So part of that is it's got some loops and you can make a longer hike out of it if you want. So it's kind of on top of the ridge. It makes kind of for an easy hike for families, people with strollers, and it's where we do a lot of interpretive hikes because it's easy. It makes like a 3/4 of a mile loop, and so it's like the perfect length for stuff like that. But it also goes down the ridge that I was mentioning, so it's pretty steep to go down, and then you can hike along the lake shore, and you can actually hike from you can hike all the way to a different part of the park to our fishing pier area. And so a lot of people like to spend time on that trail. It's kind of shaded, you can see the water, you get to see some wildlife, and it's a good mix for different skill levels. But I mentioned earlier that Nepalis is my favorite. It's the long hike, so it's almost 3 miles. It's got some elevation changes. It's our mountain biking trail. I'm a very novice mountain biker, so I walk my bike down the scary parts, but I do ride some of it. My husband's a little braver than me, so I'm like,
Yeah.
go on, I'll catch up with you. But it's nice because it goes through some different ecotypes, so you get to see some, like, prairie, then you go in through to some oak mottes, you get a nice lake view up on top of the ridge, and so that one's pretty popular too, just for folks that are looking for a longer hike.
I definitely will plan to visit Lake Brownwood, and I don't know if you saw the fine print in the email of, "Do you wanna come on the podcast?" But I have a goal to hike, share the trail, visit every guest that's ever been on the podcast, so I will definitely let you know when I'm heading that way. How far are you all from, Abilene?
From Abilene, it's about an hour and 15 minutes, so they're sort of to our northwest. It's not too bad.
'Cause I'm heading up in November, to Caprock.
Ah,
And,
yeah.
I have a friend in Abilene that I always go visit, and Mr. Barry, he was on the podcast. I think it was episode 11 and 12. He was the lost hiker at Guadalupe Mountains. He was lost out there for 5 days, and I think 3.5 days with no water, and when they found him, it's a miracle. So, I always go visit him and have some dinner or whatever, so I'll definitely have to think about, because I think that's just on the way. It would be on the way for me to hit the Lake Brownwood, but I'll definitely let you all know.
Yeah, for sure. Come see us.
So would you consider most of the trails at the park kind of beginner, friendly trails for families, or would you say that some of the trails may be if someone's looking for something a little more challenging, that you would recommend?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that all of them are beginner friendly. So especially like on Texas Oak Trail, if you had little kids, I would not recommend going down to the lower part of that trail just because it is kind of steep. It'd be a
Yeah.
place you twist your ankle and or have a kid take a tumble. We also have a short trail that I haven't mentioned yet is the Lakeside Trail. It's only 3/4 of a mile, but again, it's on that ridge where the cabins are, and so there's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of rocks, and so definitely can be challenging. Funny anecdote about that trail. I had a volunteer who did she did a zombie survival hike for Halloween one year, and so it was kind of a night hike. And some visitors had some misconceptions about the hike, so they came in costume, which is fine. But the young lady that came was in high heels. I'm talking
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah,
3-inch
come on.
heels, and to her credit, I was so scared. I was walking behind them. To her credit, she did that trail, but I was convinced that she was gonna
What?
break an ankle or something. I was like, "Ma'am, you have my full respect because some days I can barely do this in my hiking boots if I'm not paying attention." So, it is doable, but I would not call it beginner friendly.
Nice. I don't do the Guadalupe Peak Trail anymore just because 'cause I've done it so much, but, like, if I'm taking someone out to the Guads, of course, you gotta do the highest peak in Texas, but, you start heading down because usually we start hiking about 3:30 in the morning because usually you're at elevation somewhere in the park, depending on what trail you're in, by the time the sun starts to come up, so you really
Mhm.
get to see this spectacular West Texas sunrise. But
Right.
I'll be coming down and, people are in Crocs and stuff, and I'm like, "Turn around. What are you doing?" I do feel that there's a little responsibility that I have to educate people.
Yeah, like, you can probably do this, but you're probably gonna be really miserable.
Yes, absolutely. So, we kinda talked about hiking, visitors can bike there. I guess, are all the trails open to biking or just certain ones?
So really it's just Nepalus. That one it was designed for mountain
Okay.
biking. The rest, I mean, like I said, that Texas Oak Trail, the top part you could very safely, but
Okay.
um I'm sure there are some very talented extreme mountain bikers out there that are like, oh, this drop off is no problem, but it's not intended for that. So really it's
Okay.
just Nepalus, which is why I'm so eager for us to be able to develop more trails because 3 miles on a mountain bike is it's kind of chump change for most people. And so having distance, I think, is really gonna kind of elevate our trail game.
What about dogs? Are all the trails dog friendly?
Yeah, they are. I mean, again, I would use caution, depending on your dog's comfort level because of those rocks and things. Because your little doggo can get hurt too, can twist an
Yep.
ankle. And so my dog loves to pull on her leash, much as I've tried to train that out of her. So when I'm hiking on the trails with her, I have to like be super careful that she doesn't pull me down the
Oh,
slope.
yeah.
So again, just a word of caution: if you are hiking with your dog, know your dog's abilities and what they're going to do to you.
Yeah, that was a shocker, and I think it came to light with the Enchanted Rock, and Hannah was saying that she's been out there and scanned the surface, and it's 150, 160 degrees, and they have all the time people bring their dogs out and burn their paw things, whatever their fancy word,
Their
beans or
pads, yeah,
whatever, pads, and split them open,
yeah.
and they've had to rescue dogs. And so, yeah, that was shocking to me
hmm
that happens. But yeah,
Yeah. Most of our trails are short enough that if it's going squirrely on you, you can bail. But we still try to, I mean, it takes a minute, to for that to hurt your dog. And our trails surfaces certainly get hot too. And so we definitely try
yeah,
to educate people like, hey, if you're going to go out in the summer, go out first thing in the morning and save yourself some heartache, because we have seen some dogs that have been heat stressed, and um, you know, they need water and shade just like we do. So
yeah. If you're kind of thirsty, they're really thirsty. So,
yes. Yes.
so we talked about biking, hiking, dog-friendly trails. What are some other activities that are available at the park that visitors can expect to take part in?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about lake activities too. We have a tackle loaner program, so if you're interested in fishing, we've got poles and tackle you can borrow. You just bring your own bait. And by the way, I don't. Hopefully, people have talked about this on your podcast, but fishing is free in Texas State Park. So as long as you're fishing from the boundary of a Texas State Park, you don't need a fishing license. So if you're interested in getting started, it's a really great way to check it out. Make sure it's for you before you invest in gear and a fishing license. Um, we have a ton of ranger programs. So Ranger George is our interpretive ranger, and he does all kinds of stuff. He has a wilderness survival hike. He's doing fishing with a ranger this morning. He's doing guided sneak peek hikes on our new property. So it's not really developed to the point where we can just let people go out there, but we are doing guided hikes once a month on that new property so people can see it. And I think he's getting ready to add some citizen science programs as well. So learning how to use iNaturalist, learning how to use Merlin. He does history. His big thing is reptiles with the Rangers. So Ranger George is a big herp guy. He has a huge personal collection, and he has some great native reptiles that he likes to bring out. And so that's really a big draw. We get a ton of people that show up for those programs. So definitely a great place to come learn.
So is there boating in the lake? I guess like y'all have boat ramps and people can bring boats and
Yes, yes. So we have a boat ramp. Stays pretty busy. The nice thing about our location is it's in pretty deep water, and so even when the lake level goes down, we tend to have our boat ramp open. Um, I, you know, I think it like 15 feet low, something like that. It does have to close, but for quite a long time, we still have launching capabilities. And like I mentioned earlier, kayaking is really lovely because the park just looks so different from the water. I mean,
yeah.
you see the trees and everything, and it's just like, wow, this seems like a totally different place. But it's got so many coves that it's a really great experience.
Didn't know that Texas fishing license thing that y'all can fish or visitors can fish. You don't need a license in a state
Mhm.
park. I learned that with Junior from Tyler State Park came on the interpretive ranger there, and he was talking about it. I'm like, what? I had no idea.
Yeah, I think it's been going on for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Actually, probably longer, honestly. But yeah, it's really nice. It surprises a lot of people because they'll show up and like, oh, I got to buy a license, and we're like, hey, you don't today if you
Hmm.
don't want to.
Yeah. Nice. Do y'all rent kayaks or canoes or anything?
We don't have any rentals right now, unfortunately. Our friends group is actually trying to work on getting some kayak rentals in place, but at the moment we do not, unfortunately.
So, are there any designated picnic or camping areas that visitors, upon their visit, like must check out?
So, picnic areas are the day use area is great. So, right by our designated swim area, we have some huge oak trees that shade most of that area, and there's picnic tables underneath. It's so great in the summertime or spring or fall to just sit down there. You get such a nice breeze off the water, especially like early in the morning when there's not a lot of people there. You might catch some wildlife, and it's just a really peaceful place to go hang out. So, I definitely recommend that area. My favorite camping loop in our park is the Comanche Trails camping loop. So it's really more for tent campers who want electricity or people with small trailers, like 30-foot or shorter. But it's got a ton of trees. So it's very shaded, it's close to the water. I don't know. It feels like it's a little more private. I really like that. I mean, not that I live here, so I'm not going to go camp in my own park. But if I was going to camp here, that's where I would go.
Nice. So, what are the best times of year to visit the park?
I would say spring and fall. I mean, summer is our busy season, just by nature of having water.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to not have crowds, I really don't recommend coming in the summer because it's when a lot of people are here. But spring is really nice and fall is really nice. We have great wildflowers. We have migratory birds. The weather is certainly better in those times of year. So you can actually enjoy more of the day without feeling like you're a crispy piece of bacon. And you can still enjoy water activities and all that. Those times of year, especially when you get closer to summer. But it's just a little better, in my opinion, because there's more to see and less crowds to deal with.
How are y'all's winters?
Um, they've been kind of cold, honestly. I want to say the last 3 or 4 years. We had like that snowpocalypse thing,
Hmm.
so we iced over. The park actually had to close, and we had so many water breaks. We had to shut our water off. So I was like, living. So I live here. I was living in the park with no water and no people around because we have a huge hill that comes down into the park, and so if it's iced, we're like, don't come here. Um, and so I feel like the last few winters we've had at least one instance of that happening. But generally speaking, they're not awful. I mean, we don't get a lot of snow, we don't get a lot of ice typically. It's just like the one event where it's nasty and it's enough to close things down.
So, what are some seasonal events that you all host at the park that are pretty important for you that you think the listeners should know about?
Yeah, so we very timely for anyone listening before Halloween. We do a trunk or treat event every year, which we've been doing for I don't know, maybe 5 years now. But we have a whole camping loop where campers that want to participate, they decorate their campsite and they hand out candy. We have this big event where we invite the community to come in and trick or treat. And we've got different stations set up as well. Like we'll have the master naturalist out. Ranger George will have his snakes out, his creepy crawly station. We typically see 600 to 700 people come out for that
Oh my
event.
gosh.
It's bananas. um, and
Wow.
the nice thing about it is we don't charge an entry fee for that event. We actually help support a community partner. So, like this year, we're collecting non-perishable food items for Good Samaritan, who's operating out of Brownwood. They help feed hungry families, and so it's a great chance to like give back to our community, provide a safe space for families to go trick or treating. And I mean, it's so fun. I mean, I love seeing the crazy costumes that people have, and like kids just like clean up at that event. I mean, you'll see them go in with their bag, and when they're leaving, they're like hauling away, a huge bag, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how I don't think you need all that, kiddo.
No, we used to always just donate it or trash it
Yeah.
because it just got to be too much.
Yeah. So that's the kind of the big event that we try to do. We also have a Christmas event, so kind of a drive-through lighted event. So campers decorate their campsites with like Christmas and holiday lights, and then we once again we waive entry fees for that event, and we collect items to support another community partner. We've supported our local animal shelter in the past, so we'll collect food and towels and cleaning supplies and things for them. And so again, it's just a chance for us to give back to our community and have some holiday fun. So those are our kind of main consistent seasonal events that we have.
Yeah, I was talking to Junior at Tyler, and he set up a program with the animal shelter where it's like once a month or something where they bring out the dogs that are, that have been cooped up forever and just walk them around the park. And I think it's even linked to an adoption, like you can maybe come and play with the dog and adopt as well, but get those animals, dogs out and, kind of something a little special for them. I thought was really, really awesome.
Yeah, we've tried in the past. Our hang up, I guess, is that we're a bit of a drive from town. So we're about 25 minutes from Brownwood. It's not awful, but I mean, for an organization that depends on volunteers, it can be a lot to try to get that all coordinated. So, but we have tried in the past, and it was fun to just see those dogs get to just be themselves outside. Not stuck in their
Hmm.
little spaces. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about park accommodations for large groups or anything? Is there any setups for this kind of stuff?
I would say that we are absolutely set up for big groups. I don't want to say we excel, but I'm going to say that we excel at that. So again, this is hard to talk about with the cabins being closed, but under normal circumstances, we have 16 cabins, 4 lodges, and 2 group halls, plus all of the we have 88 campsites, we have 10 screen shelters. So we have room, and so strong tradition in this park are family reunions. We actually have a family that's been having their family reunion at Lake Brownwood. They're not able to this year, of course, but they're having their 75th annual family reunion, and it would have been here if we were open. And basically, all of them but 2 of their family reunions have been at Lake Brownwood, and this is a big family. They have T-shirts and everything. It's great because you're like, oh my god, hey, you're back.
It's the
Um,
Smiths.
yeah, I mean, we have these family names that we're just like, "Oh, it's that time of year again to see, X family." And so that's what a lot of them do. They rent all the cabins and lodges. They rent that group hall so they have a big space to hang out, and they spend a weekend. Some of them spend a week. Um, and so we really we're well set up for that, and that's why a lot of large groups like to come here. We also have had plenty of weddings, birthday parties, all kinds of celebrations. So we're pretty used to seeing big groups coming to Lake Brownwood.
And I don't know that a lot of Texas state parks can say that.
No, it can get if you're a smaller family, you got more options, but if you got a big family, you're pretty limited on choices.
All right. So, the visitors coming to the park, they have one day there, plan out their trip. What should they do?
Mm. Well, you've got to go check out the group recreation hall. So, like I said, it's kind of the iconic building of this park. It's got an observation tower that you can go up the stairs. You get a great view of the surrounding area, the lake, and that gets you kind of in touch with our history and the feel for the CCC. And while you're there, go check out the Grand Staircase, which is also a CCC structure that gets you down to the water, and it connects to the Lakeside Trail, where you can then take a nice little hike and see all of the CCC picnic areas that were built. And it's a great place to go birding and just find a quiet place to sit and just soak in the water and sounds. It's just so peaceful there. That's kind of like my little hidey hole when I need a break. Like go sit there. And then once you're done with that, go down to our day use area, find a picnic table, have a picnic, and just soak up the water and the sounds. That would be like a perfect day for me. It's just walking around and finding those quiet places, because that's what I love about this park is like finding the quiet places and relaxing.
Let me tell you, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but I am the supporter of the black sheep of the national parks and state parks. Not black sheep as in bad, but as it relates to less people. So, Big Bend is popular. Guadalupe is one of the least visited national parks in the United States. That's my jam.
Yeah.
Paladuro, that's one of the most popular Texas state parks. But if I just drive an hour and a half south, I'm at Caprock and I don't see anybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all about no crowds. And if to the listeners, if you like crowds, I'm not no harm in that, but I'm just not a crowd person.
Yeah. No judgment from us.
Yep,
We see
yep.
all kinds, and we're here for all kinds.
Most of the stuff that I do in the quads, I'm in the backcountry, and outside of walking in and getting my permit from Leah, I don't see anybody the
Yeah.
whole trip, 3,
Yeah.
4, or 5 days, and it's absolutely spectacular. You literally feel like the quads are just they're all mine. So
But you know what's interesting about that? Um, because absolutely, like people, there are some people like, I don't want to see anybody. I want to feel like a tiny speck on this earth. And, but I've actually had some campers that, like, I've actually had people leave because they're like, it's too quiet. There's no one else in my
really,
camping loop. I feel isolated. And that's not the experience that they want. And so it's just interesting to hear you say that because I've seen the other side of that where it's like, I need at least a little people because
yeah.
it's too quiet.
You know what? You guys should rent like speakers, and if they want that noisy experience, they could.
I'll just record on a busy night and then we'll just play
That's right.
ambient sounds when it's quiet.
That's right. That's right. So I love this section of the podcast. I love talking about wildlife. So, what type of wildlife can visitors expect to see in the park?
So, white-tailed deer, they are out in force right now, by the way. So, if you like to drive and look at deer, there's a lot. I mentioned bobcats before. It's pretty rare that you're going to see them, but like I said, I have. I've seen them several times. We actually did a spotlight survey where we were counting our deer population last month, and we got to see one, which was awesome. I wish I had gotten a picture, but I didn't even expect to see it. So, that didn't happen. Armadillo are everywhere here. That's kind of our little park mascot. The Friends group has adopted the armadillo as their animal, so you can even get a little stuffed Arnie, as they call them, with a Lake Brownwood bandana. Um,
Nice.
I love the armadillo too because we get folks from up north who have never seen one,
Hmm.
and they're like, "What is this? I never thought I'd see one." And you're like, "Oh yeah, they're all over the place." But for them, it's a first time experience. Tons of fox. We have a lot of gray fox in the park, and if you're
Really?
yes, yeah, well, they're all over. If I don't know if any of you follow us on our social media channels, Ranger George does trail cam, and so I think one of his recent one was a gray fox that he caught kind of playing around. So
Oh,
that's pretty cool. And then if you're really lucky, we have ringtails as well, and porcupines. So both of those are things that people don't typically get to see, but they are here. We do get to see them occasionally. So if you're lucky, as you're wandering the park, you might run into those.
I had no idea porcupines existed. And I had a friend on. He's up in Amarillo, and he goes, "Yeah, there's porcupines all over the place." He goes, "You don't usually see them on the ground; they're up in trees." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay, stop. What?"
Well,
He's like, "Yeah, they're."
that was me. The first time I saw one was here at this park, and it was up in a tree, and I was like, "What is that?" And one of my
Yep.
coworkers was like, "It's a porcupine." I was like, "No, it's not." And they're like, "Yes, Nikki, that's what they do.
Yep.
They live in trees."
I think the only thing at the Guads that I have left on my bucket list, so trails, campsites, all done all that, is to see a mountain lion in the backcountry. Not up close, but
Yeah.
off in the distance. And my friend Henning, he was in the military. He's got some really cool scopes and stuff, but just to sit on a ridge line at dusk or dawn and just look for them. And I just learned, I had Leo on the podcast, and we're still in the process of finishing that up. But there's an elk herd in the bowl of the Guads, and I had no idea. But she said, yeah, they're in the bowl. We've seen some footprints, but we were like, there's no way that's an elk, but it is. There was a ranger there, a volunteer. Maybe she wasn't a volunteer, but her name's Pam Bells, and I've talked about her a ton. But one of her rescues was that movie Infinite Storm. So if you've ever seen that, so she used to volunteer, uh, I guess, walk in the whites and help people out. But so she was brought down, or she was asked to come down to the Guads, and she did. And so had no idea who she was, and I always just knew her. I always called her, "Hey, Ranger Pam," and we would always talk about mountain lion sightings because she's in her 70s. She's in the backcountry by herself. She sometimes for rescue, she gets helicoptered in.
Oh,
She's
wow.
cowboy camping. She's amazing. And we're talking about, mountain lions areas that she's seen so then I can go explore later, or even with rescues or fatalities at the park. You kind of get the real story because she's involved with all these a lot more than what you'd get in like the news article to see kind of what happened, what facilitated that issue. And we were talking, this was probably 2 years ago, and we're talking about it was right after two climbers that were trying to climb El Cap. One fell. They were brothers, I believe, and one passed away, and the other guy just was stuck on this little ledge for like 12 hours,
Oh my
18
gosh.
hours before they could rescue him. So we're talking about that, and then she starts talking about a rescue, and I'm like, man, that sounds so familiar. That sounds like I go, that sounds like that movie, Infinite Storm. So she smiles and she grabs her name badge and she like just turns it, and I'm like, oh my God, you're Pam Bells, no way. And I could care less about sports people or movie stars or singers. Don't care at all. But I was like, can we take an Ussie? And I was on hog heaven. But yeah, she just retired and she's heading back to New Hampshire. Yeah, so it's my mountain lion sighting person has left the park, so I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, that's a goal of mine, is just to see one. And I don't know that I could ever call the Guads like that's a wrap, but yeah, that's the last thing definitely that I have left to do in the park.
That would be a nice, like, bow on the top kind of
Oh,
moment.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that I've found all the secrets. The B-24 plane crash, I found Jose's grave, I found some other secret little gems, but yeah, that's one thing that's eluded me. And I don't know how much effort I put into it because usually we're doing such big days that when you get to campsite, you're just
Yeah,
done. And
yeah,
it's usually, we're starting at dark and ending at dark. So it's like you just want to go to sleep.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of those where you're just gonna stumble across it one day. Like, I think that looking means that you're not going to. It's just gonna have to be organic where you just suddenly stumble upon that moment, and then you're like,
Yeah, we
"Okay,
had
I'm
a
close."
we had a snowstorm that happened. It was right before we headed out. So we headed out about 3:30 up Tejas, got to the top of Tejas, and then there's a cabin up there we passed, and you kind of round to you're like heading towards Lost Peak. And so it just snowed that night, and it's like probably by now 4 in the morning, and we're walking through some of the snow on the trail, and there's mountain lion prints,
Ooh,
right? And so they're fresh. That
yes.
sucker's probably looking at you right now, and so yeah, that was kind of creepy, but also kind of pretty spectacular. So we've seen a
Yes.
lot of prints over the years, but just never seen one. So
Yeah. Well, maybe someday.
yeah, I hope. So are there any like rare protected species that call the park home? I know sometimes we've had some state parks come on and they have like some rare birds or protected species, especially the birds that have make their park home. What about you guys?
Yeah, so, one thing about us is that we don't really have any of those, like, protected charismatic species, which, I mean, just the nature of where we are, but one thing I love about where we are is we have a very high diversity of plants and wildlife, which is cool. So we don't have anything that we don't have like a golden cheek warbler or anything, but we are fortunate in that we just have a really high diversity because we're kind of at that weird meeting point of different ecotypes.
I think Steven at Pedernales said that bird.
Yeah, probably
The
so.
yeah, I think that was his favorite animal at the park.
Yeah.
That's funny that you said that.
Well, it's on my mind. So all the parks that have habitat for them have just finished doing like surveys for those birds, and so they've been talking about it a lot.
So speaking of that, how do you at the park or in your team work to protect and conserve these natural habitats?
So, I mean, it's an interesting place to be in a park because you're balancing recreation and access with conservation. And so, for us, we are doing the best we can to keep folks, first of all, in the designated spaces that we have for them. So, in your campsite, in the day use area, not weed whack, like got a machete, I'm cutting my own trail where I want to go because we're trying to keep the impact that we have as humans in specific areas that we know can handle it and that we've decided this is okay. And so a lot of that is just education. Um, y- we spend a lot of time with our programs, with interactions that we have on a daily basis. Visitors, they don't necessarily like the ranger stopping by and telling them that they're doing something wrong. And we definitely try to bring that in with like, hey, gently education about why this thing is harmful. And a lot of folks are on board with that. I think some people just don't realize, like, they don't recognize the impact that they're having because they're not thinking about it that way. A lot of people want to do good. Some people are just going to do what they want to do, and you know, we manage that differently. But we also do a lot of resource management. So one really cool thing, again, kind of timely, if you're listening to this in October, is that we actually have a resource specialist position posted right now, which is this will be the very first time we've ever had this position. And this person is going to kind of spearhead our resource project. So, doing research in the park, doing surveys, kind of getting a baseline for what we have, doing prescribed burn preparations, doing our public hunts, doing prairie restoration. I mean, there's all kinds of projects that that person will get to be involved with. We do that too, but for most of us, we wear so many hats, and there's only so many hours in a day. And sometimes that day
Yeah.
is just getting bathrooms clean, getting campsites ready, and dealing with interpersonal problems that people have when they come here. And so it's
Mhm.
going to be so exciting to have someone that is their job to focus and spearhead those efforts. But like I said, as regular rangers, we get to do some of those things too.
That was also shocking, the amount of hats that everybody has within, a park. And to me, I think it was Enchanted Rock, they were able to now hire someone to spear, whatever, what was that position you just said?
So resource specialist.
Yes, a resource specialist. And I would think that that would be the decision to go because then they can focus just on these types of things instead of like what you said is spend 10 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 30 minutes here. And yeah, I think that's awesome
Yeah,
for
we're
sure.
we're really excited, and I'm trying to like contain my. I'm like, okay, just write down some of your goals so that way you don't just like fire hydrant ideas on this poor person who's like, I'm just figuring out what this park is.
Yep, absolutely. So as we kind of start to wrap up, and I think this is one of the most important questions. Well, it is to me. In your opinion, what is the best way that visitors that can get connected to the park can support the park, whether it's volunteering, whether it's donations? Like, how can the listeners get connected with the park?
Yeah, that's such a great question. We could always use volunteers. We actually have a friends group.
Hmm.
Hopefully y'all are familiar with friends group, but for anyone who might not be. So basically it's a volunteer. Ours is a 501c3 organization that their sole purpose is to fundraise and support activities in the park. And so they run our park store, and profits that they make, they help us with projects. So a great example recently was they helped us get our crappie dock refloated. So they paid for a company to come out and replace floats and get that operational again. And so the work that they do is really critical. But it's not just about money. I mean, they spend their time helping us with special events. They do trail days. They do all kinds of work. And if you're looking to get plugged in with volunteering at the park, that is such a great way to do it because it's people that are passionate about Lake Brownwood and supporting the work that we do. And so that is a great way. We also have some amazing park hosts. So like if you're in the park host realm looking for a park to go to,
Mhm.
we have spaces. And that is such a fun way to get to know people because park hosting is just a different, like it's a different kind of volunteering, you know. I mean, they're still volunteers, but like it's a lifestyle for them. And I've met some incredible people. They have such big hearts and they have such dedication to what they do, and they're just kind of living the dream in their trailer and seeing, you know, the state or even the nation. So, you know, of course that's not for everybody, but we're always looking for great park hosts too. And then beyond that, you know, we have volunteer opportunities. Hopefully with this resource specialist, we'll have more volunteer opportunities that are resource focused. Like maybe we do seed collecting where we can do seed bombs and things like that. So that's more of a stay tuned. We will see what happens. But there's lots of ways to get plugged in with us and give back if that's something that you're looking to do.
And when you say friends group, is it a Facebook group? Is it an Instagram group? Is it a like like how can people join that?
Yeah, so they have monthly business meetings here at the park.
Mhm.
Um, so it's that's their kind of main way to get together and focus. They do have a Facebook page if you're interested in getting
Okay.
connected with
Okay.
them, and they are on our volunteer page where you can sign up as a volunteer through them. Um, so that's kind of the main way to get in touch with them. It's easier for folks that live closer, of course, if you intend to come to monthly meetings. But even then, they're still looking for people that just want to like come out and help them with specific projects
Yeah. Or just donations.
or that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll take that too.
All right, last question. Are you ready for it?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. This is all on you.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So, sell the park. Give us the reasons why this is my hiking season starts in September and goes till about May or June. Why should the park be on the bucket list to come visit and take part in the activities?
Oh man. Okay, so here's my pitch. This park is about gathering. It's about slowing down. It's about taking your time. You know, I think some parks are very much like test your limits and push yourself and go go go, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. To me, Lake Brownwood State Park is a place to come and be introspective, to be quiet, to spend time with people that you love and to reset. And water helps people do that. Trees help people do that. Cozy little cabins in the woods help people do that when they're open again, of course. I'm sorry, not this season, but when they are. Um, Trails help people do that. Wildlife helps people do that. Come to Brownwood to reconnect with nature, to slow yourself down, to hit the reset button for yourself, and give yourself a chance to just be peaceful and reset.
Nice, I love it. Well, I can't thank you enough, and I always end the podcast with this, and I don't have the words to show how much I appreciate this for you taking the time out of your busy day. But I greatly appreciate it. I can't thank you enough, and I am definitely, and it may be this trip heading up to Abilene. I'm definitely going to stop by and visit. Also, I'm going to bring you. How many people work there?
There are, well, with our new position, there were 18 of us.
Okay, I'm going to bring you all some merch stickers
Ooh,
and to
stickers.
come visit. But I greatly appreciate it. It's been a great episode, and I will release you to go put on your mini hats and make the visitors experience amazing.
Thank you. I will see what fires have cropped up since I've taken a pause in my day. But I super appreciate it, Jason. I could gush about Brownwood a lot, but thanks for the chance to just collect my thoughts about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.